This week, we get news of another new board game convention, as well as hearing that Asmodee is at it again.
Then it's our topic of the week, BoardGameGeek. It's celebrating its 15th anniversary. We're going to talk about what gives it such staying power. My name is Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.
Wizards of the Coast has announced the next big storyline for Dungeons & Dragons, and it is called Elemental Evil. It is going to have far-reaching implications across Dungeons & Dragons as a role-playing game, as well as a board game, as well as the Neverwinter Nights digital game. But what applies to us tabletop gamers is, first of all, there's going to be a new adventure book released for 5th edition called Princes of the Apocalypse in April. That will be for anyone from levels 1 to 15 to enjoy, as well as a new addition in the Dungeons & Dragons board game series, which is called the Temple of Elemental Evil. Also will be releasing in April from WizKids, who has done their other Dungeons & Dragons board games in the past, and I believe it will be on the same kind of system, the same type of game, although we have not had a chance to try any of those out ourselves. But it's pretty exciting. From what I hear, although we are but newbies, Elemental Evil is sort of a throwback. That was a storyline that they kind of had going a while in the past. But now it's coming back, and it's exciting. More stuff, more elements of evil that are elemental. Supposedly, there's a pretty cool temple involved in this. That should be exciting. I don't know what Princes of the Apocalypse means, but I'm excited to find out.
This spring, Dungeons & Dragons explodes in Elemental Evil, the return of the evil element.
They should hire you.
But no, it's interesting. I mean, all these storylines are cool. I'm very curious because I know before the whole big thing was dragons. Like,
Right.
They had the Tiamat, the Queen Dragon.
Right.
I don't know. Like you said, we're new, and we're very terrible at getting our group to actually do anything.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna pull them together in time for this new release. I am more curious about the board game, just because we've never played any of them, but
we should.
They keep making them.
You're talking about Dungeons & Dragons Clue, right?
Yeah, Dungeons & Dragons Clue, Dungeons & Dragons Monopoly.
No, it's definitely. I'm very curious what they could do. It'd be interesting if maybe even adds like a class or something like that, or a race. That's
I wouldn't
be
surprised. Yeah.
Anything you would, even though you're new, is there anything you could think of you'd want to see?
Nah, I just hope that.
Especially as the DM, since you're the DM. That's it. Because I'm thinking as the player, you play the DM currently in our one story.
Yeah, a good story so I don't have to make one up myself. That really is what it is. I don't really need anything like any new cool stuff, just as long as it's a fun adventure.
Okay, cool.
Just keep it going.
All right, so we'll see more of that soon, hopefully.
Yes, we will.
Continuing off that, earlier we mentioned in a much earlier podcast that a Future Fantasy Flight had a convention specifically for a Cosmic Encounter. Well, of course, Mayfair Games did not want to be left behind in that. So they are now announcing Catan Con to start this April in 2015, the 24th to 26th in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, for daily tickets, $22, but if you pay $45, you get all 3 days, plus swag, an exclusive shirt. And while you're there, they're going to have like all the old Catans, some that were out of print for a long time. They mentioned something called Mammoth Catan, and by the sound of it looks like they're going to have a lot of really large versions.
That seems to be the big thing with Catan, or really any game when you have a convention. Make it huge!
Well, because don't you just want like King of Tokyo, just take a giant monster in the city?
We just want it to be real. We want life size.
No, at this one, they actually have real sheep. You have to keep by you and actually give people logs and sheep.
Yes. I mean, but yeah, it is. If any game is deserving of it, there's enough different versions of Catan to fill a convention, and enough people who are going to go to play it, I'm sure. I wish it weren't in Nashville, but...
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe they'll even announce a new version or something.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have something.
Perfect place.
Yeah.
So yeah, great place to go if you're a big fan of Catan. Price, I think, is relatively good. $45 for a free shirt, a bunch of other things, and just general fun of playing Catan with other people.
Plus,
they did also mention they're going to actually try to beat like a 100-person Catan game or something, like some record or something like that.
100 people.
I think it might be a tournament or something. I don't know exactly, but it seems like they're trying. Like that's what
Interesting.
mentioned. But it seems pretty cool. Definitely, if you want to like maybe even just have the experience of playing some of those older ones that just been out of print and non-existent for years.
It's cool just to see those old games.
Yeah,
like the
I remember we loved it when we visited BoardGameGeek Con, and they had an old version of Cosmic Encounter and
Betrayal.
and we're just like, oh look, it's our favorite game. Just years before we started playing.
It is
them.
weird because it's like a retro version. It almost seems like a fan made thing, but it's like
the Cosmic Encounter actually did not look like Cosmic Encounter. Like it looked actually much more like serious and like when like the new one I feel like more character-y and stuff like.
So look forward to stuff like that. Plus the name rhymes, which I think is a huge bonus. Catan Con.
All right, we're gonna say this for like 5 minutes now. Let's just fast forward, click a little bit forward, and we'll...
In other news, Mayfair Games is having a convention. Meanwhile, Asmodee is planning on purchasing it. I'm just guessing. In case you hadn't heard, last year, Asmodee, the big board game publishing company, became even bigger when it bought out both Fantasy Flight and Days of Wonder. It was a huge deal both of those times. Well, we've got word that they purchased a couple others, which would be Pearl Games and Istari Games, or Istari Games. I really don't know how to pronounce it. Istari Games did games like Kalis. Pearl Games has done things like Deus, which recently came out. That's really big. And this actually, they didn't really announce these purchases. We sort of found out by accident when one of their a smaller publishing brand from within Asmodee had a press release announcing that it would stop putting out games, basically because with Fantasy Flight and Days of Wonder, there wasn't a lot of room for them anymore in the Asmodee branch. And they casually mentioned like, oh, and also, they'll do things with these Pearl games and these Starry games that no one really knew they owned. So it was sort of an interesting thing. And we've talked about this twice now on our show. Actually, I think we missed, I think they bought Fantasy Flight while we were at BoardGameGeek Con, so we didn't really get a chance to talk about it.
We did talk a little bit. Because I remember we were both like, okay, now we're a little...
So, yeah, it keeps happening. They keep buying things.
Well, supposedly, they're actually looking at buying Nintendo now, and also PlayStation and Xbox.
I'm serious.
So, I mean, Microsoft.
If they get Z-Man, I mean, that's it. I don't know, like, that's scary. I was a little scared when it first started happening. But man, do they really need all these companies?
Yes.
Like, really?
They need more. Me, Asmodee, need more companies.
Like, and every publisher on Twitter and everything I've seen is joking about being bought out by them because it's happening. They're just going nuts over there.
They're going to just fund every Kickstarter and buy the games before they even come.
They're hungry. I mean, I guess... Like, I still think we'll continue to really not notice the difference.
We'll see. No, what they're planning on
But it's starting to get weird.
Also, next thing you know, everything's going to look the same. They're going to standardize everything. All cards are going to be all the same size.
I don't know.
Like, even the little Fantasy Flight's little cards won't be small anymore. Like, everything has to be the same.
I just think they're insecure. I think they want our love.
They just want a lot of friends.
Our affection.
They're just buying their friends.
They're lonely.
But, no, we'll see what happens with this. Like you said, most likely nothing, but of course, I'm thinking they're going to build Death Star. Just me.
I mark that as a prediction. I think we're going to come back to that someday.
All right, so going into space.
Wow.
Stronghold Games, which do they have them yet? I don't know.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Games is
Not
free
yet.
for now.
Has released a Kickstarter for their new Space Cadets Away missions. If you don't know, Space Cadets is a line of games. This is their third one that's a standalone. The first one being Space Cadets, in which everyone takes a station, like in a ship. Second one is a dice game. Space Cadets Dice. And the third one is you actually play as characters sort of going out into like abandoned alien ships, exploring new planets, fighting other aliens and grabbing technology and other things. There's all these different roles you get to play as, like a captain, there's like a medical first officer. And you move around with these really detailed miniatures. This is a miniatures game. Move around spaces and you roll a die, and depending on what you roll, you could kill it, depending on your weapon. Sometimes you do something called overkill, in which you may either sometimes you move faster depending on your character, your weapon might do something, or the gun or the enemy you kill or attack with overkill might do something special. Like maybe you get it for more money or something. They haven't revealed all the cards yet. but like amazing detailed miniatures. It's going actually for $99 right now, which is pretty pricey for the game itself. $60 if you just want the miniatures. But still it looks very interesting.
It's kind of like the in Space Cadets was you're on the ship, you're on the Enterprise, and this is when you go down to the planet
right.
for your adventure and people die.
But it's already interesting too because I feel like the artwork is so different though. Like comparing to Dice and Cadets, like the artwork seems more like silly.
Oh really?
Like, like I said, regular Space Cadets. But like this one looks much more like.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
This one in my head looks more like old sci-fi.
Right, like retro, like Star Trek, but like the
the
posters for old
yeah.
B movies.
Yeah, like a Mars Attacks kind of.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Like I said, it's interesting. There are a lot of interesting enemies. There's like a leader. There's pawns. There's one that's a thrall. That's like a human that looks like it's being mind controlled and like stuff. It's yeah.
It kind of sounded like a little bit like sort of a Descent.
No, that's what the vibe I was getting too.
Yeah.
I just I wasn't 100% sure when I read it whether it's full campaign mode or not. But you can check out the Kickstarter.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Watch it. Maybe back if you want to buy it. And currently, those are really the two main pledge levels, so not much in between. There's one other that's 500 to join them at a party at Gen Con, if that's your thing.
Could be your thing.
Could be your thing.
But that's a Kickstarter.
Yeah. Speaking of Kickstarters, I think it's actually time we discussed our Kickstarter Pickstarters.
The game that I'm going to be talking about this week is called Bring Your Own Book. It is an interesting sort of card game from designer Matthew Moore, and the premise of it is sort of like Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples, where one person is a judge. However, the way it works is you'll draw a card, and it's going to give you some sort of criteria, like it might say something that sounds like a country western song. And each player is actually going to have, as the title implies, their own book with them while they play. That you can choose from your own collection. Any book, doesn't matter, you bring it with you. And so let's say it was country western song. Every player now has to look through their book. There's a timer, and in the amount of time you have to find a sentence, a phrase, a line in the book that could fit that criteria. Then you give it to the judge, and they decide who gave them the best answer. And it's just such a wacky, interesting concept of everyone actually having their own books that gives it this weirdly personal kind of twist to those types of games, and also sounds like a genuine challenge to be able to find something.
Yeah. However, first of all, I think anyone who brings 50 Shades of Grey wins. However, you should have mentioned you actually do not get to keep your own book.
Right. First part of the game, at a certain point in the game, I think whenever somebody gets 3 or 4 wins, you actually you rotate books. So you could end up with someone else. So you can't study beforehand.
You could just be like, okay, I have notes in all of your books, and then I'll switch.
Right.
Oh, crud, I never read this. No, I think it sounds hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it also probably will go with beer, so BIOB should work both ways.
But it just really different, such a different feel than I think any.
No, absolutely. Well, because what's great about it is you really change. You know how sometimes games it's randomized, so it's gonna be a different playthrough. This really can be different each time, because one game I could bring Lovecraft collection. You could bring Sherlock Holmes. Someone can bring the Odyssey. Next thing you know, next time someone brings a graphic novel.
Dr. Seuss books.
Oh my god!
That'd be the best.
The Dr. Seuss collection. That is the best. Oh, there's so many good things.
There's a lot of good things. So the game, if you want to buy it, is $22, and they have a free print and play, so you can try it out right now. See how much fun it is. I recommend checking it out. We both do because
we both love anything with stories, and this literally is just take the books you have and just make hilarious things from them.
What do you got?
Speaking of words,
yes,
mine is Unspeakable. Strictly Unspeakable Words Deluxe Edition. This is coming from Playroom Games. This game actually came out. The regular one came out late 2000s, and the game pretty much plays sort of like how you play most word games, in which you get cards with letters and you try to make them. However, it has a bit of a Lovecraftian twist. The words, the points they're worth, are equal to the number of angles they have. So A, for example, I believe is worth about 5 points. Your total score, let's say you made the word sanity, which I think was about 16 points. You roll a die then, a 20-sided die. You have to reach your number or higher to score it. If not, you lose a little bit of sanity, which is represented by these really adorable little Cthulhu figures that are about this. If you lose all your sanity, you're out. First person to 100 points wins. So it's this hilarious gamble. Like, most word games just, we just make the word and try to make your high score. This one you actually have to be like, I can make this great word, but it may hurt me.
Right. So you want to, if you had a word with a bunch of O's in it.
Actually, no, that does nothing because they don't have any angles, so they don't even give points.
Right. So
it's
useless.
Soon, I think S doesn't give points either. It only gives 3 points because of N.
Huh. Interesting.
And by itself, it fits up to, I believe, 7 people, but by the descriptions of the pledge levels, you can combine them with other copies to pretty much throw them together. This is the deluxe edition, which comes with a new artwork, which is actually done by John Kovalik. If you don't know, is the guy who does Munchkin, Apples to Apples. You will recognize his artwork if you see it, which is really cool. For $35, you get a bunch of the Cthulhu miniatures I mentioned, which are great and you can use for other things. You get, of course, a deck of cards. And there's other pledge levels to get their old version. To get 2 of the new versions, you can stack them and mix it together. So it just looked like a really great twist on the word game. Plus Lovecraftian is always something interesting.
Yeah, so it's nice to have.
For some reason, as board gamers, we always cannot resist the lore of Cthulhu.
Well, it's nice to have it as a theme that isn't necessarily, your Arkham, your a real heavy game. Just kind of a light dusting of it.
Also, like I said, I love the twist on it. So it's not just I'm good with words, so I'll just make the longest words and win. Which, if you can't guess, I'm not good with words.
Did you say how much it goes for?
$35. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So it looked like a lot of fun. I have backed this one already. So take a look at it. So, but I think that is enough for all these Kickstarter. I think it's time for our topic of the week. All right, before we start this topic, I think the first thing we got to say is happy birthday, BoardGameGeek Con. This past week was their 15th anniversary.
15th anniversary.
Pretty big, yeah.
22nd of January.
So it's if you don't know the site, it's pretty much the sort of go-to site for board game news, and not need news, just everything. Yeah. They pretty much every game you can look up. You can look up reviews. They'll tell you what maybe promos or add-ons. There's videos, whether people have discussions.
I mean, it's really the community. I think all the like you said, all those reviews are from fans. They do have their own content.
They have contests to get free games. A lot of the developers are on there as well, and then we'll respond to you.
Right.
You can rate games, so it's really you can have your own profile and just be like, okay, I rate all the games I have, so you can sort of see a list of games you've played. Mm-hmm. You can look at the list and put games you own, or maybe write games you want to have, like a wish list. So that way you can tell people, here's what I want, or you can maybe put games like, here's games I own but we never play, and just look at it sadly as it collects more dust on the shelf.
Yep, on your virtual wish list shelf or collection shelf.
Yeah. And, of course, they actually have the convention, which we were at and we reported from, which is a lot of fun.
So they're big.
Yeah, they're pretty much
they're the board game site.
Yeah, no, I feel like when it comes to video games, there's IGN. I feel like there's there's a lot more. Mm-hmm. But this, I can't really think of.
No, I think it's you can't overstate how important the site has been to the board gaming community. There's so I don't think it would be half as big as it is. Well, maybe something else probably would have filled the void, but you know what I mean. Because it allows people to come together on those forums and see all these other people who like what they like, and you get to talk about, is this game any good? Is this game good? It gives you so many ideas of what you want to buy, what games are like. And like you said, one of my favorite things that's so cool is that a lot of those developers do post on the message boards themselves. And it's so great to have that real feedback. I've seen so often someone will post a complaint or review, and the designer of the game is like, oh, you're right, here's some sting, I'll fix that.
More importantly, when you're playing a board game and someone says, that doesn't work, and you're like, yes, it does. You can look it up there because 99% of the time it will be there.
Right. Maybe you can ask the designer themselves.
No, they have responded to me multiple times.
Yeah.
Especially, which is really helpful because I know there's certain times it's always that like weird wording, like it's like you don't really expect, and you're just like, even like it's not even like if you're arguing about it, you're like, how's this work? And everyone's like, I don't know.
No, that's got to be our number one use for BoardGameGeek. Personally, as a group, like anytime there's a rules discussion, which happens probably about 8 times per game, that's
it
right. It
depends
where
on
we
the
go.
game.
Yeah, anything more complicated than Ticket to Ride, pretty much we'll look something up.
I know another thing that it can be used for, which is really nice, is they have the promo shop.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool because they usually sell certain exclusive promos there. I know I picked up for you the legendary alternate artwork for like Spider-Man, Hulk, and Green Goblin, which is pretty cool.
That stuff is great.
I mean, definitely worth checking out. Overall, the site is just, and I think that's actually one of its biggest problems. It's so big.
Huh.
Like there's so much there. It's like you really are diving into like this bottomless abyss.
Yeah, well, I guess we've been kind of talking about how great it is. Are there any what are the flaws? Do you think?
I wouldn't. I don't. This one is sort of a flaw. I wouldn't call it a flaw as much as a warning. Like I mentioned earlier, you can rate board games and you can see how other people have rated them.
Right.
And while in general it will probably lean to whether a game is really good or bad, you have to take into account what most of the fan base is there. They're generally people probably closer up in age, heavy board gamers who are rating these and stuff. So a game that might have a really low score might be mostly because it's a little bit simpler and is more random, but it could still be a decent game and great for kids.
Right, you got to know what you're looking for.
Right.
It's a lot of times more helpful to read the content rather than their opinion, like more for the description of the game.
Yes.
But that ties into what we talked about a couple weeks ago about their ranking system.
No, that's actually what I was thinking of.
Yeah, where, like you said, it's... there are issues with it. I would say go back and watch our worst games ever episode to hear more discussion on it.
But I think overall it still connects with the overall sentiment. Understand that just because maybe your game isn't in the top 100 or whatever, everyone has their own opinions. This is like an averaging across everyone. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's nice when you rate your own. That's why I like that. So it's sort of like my own.
Yeah. The rating system is pretty cool.
Because, like I said, even though I said it's a warning, it's still something worth looking at.
I also would say
if you see a game like you knew you'd like, and it like there's some games like I don't know. Let's say there's a really big game that came out, like a big property. I'm gonna use X-Files because that just came out, even though I don't know the rating system at all. And you see it really low, it's like that surprises you. Like there's certain things that you should but when you see the rating, you should review it. You see why like they post the videos or reviews, so you can maybe see someone playing the game. Read what comes with it, and maybe you can see why, whether people just maybe
use
didn't
your
like
own judgment as opposed to just taking what other people say, which goes for really any review system, I think. I was going to say also, another thing I would say is it's been 15 years, they could probably use a revamp for the layout of the site. It is a little 90s looking, which it's functional and it works, and we're so used to it that I don't really think anything about it, but it would be nice to see them a little more modern, a little more modern type of look.
I know one thing that I've seen people complain about when I've been on there is with the contests, because it's once again so big and so many people, chances are you're not going to even get close to winning until maybe you've entered at least 100 or something.
Yeah, it's
and
hard
supposedly also what people do, which is sort of a little sad, is to make multiple profiles just to enter the contests. Which makes it even harder for you.
That's another thing we didn't talk about. Of course, there's Geek Gold, where the system to buy avatars and things like that. Right. What do you think about that? I've never really gotten involved with it.
I got some Geek Gold for free for liking for an avatar, but there's also badges and stuff.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's that bad because it's not a requirement. It's not like in a micro game like you're not really setting yourself back. Like you don't get a certain character or weapon, you're doomed. It's literally just for bragging rights. Really, it's like buying little micro badges and stuff.
It's like hats or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and they make money off it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
People,
they got to make money somehow.
Well, I'm
they
sure
do have ads too, but
I mean, I do not think it's a bad thing because it doesn't hamper you from using the site. It's not like spend 5 geek gold to rate this game or read a review.
Yeah.
Like if that was the case, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as big as it was. But once again, I haven't spread. There could be other ways to use geek gold. Because once again, like for me, it's just I'm not gonna spend money.
Right. That's our number one concern here. Yeah, but overall,
we're too busy buying all these.
There's no. We really, if you're watching this, I'm sure you know already. There's just so many. It's such a great resource for anything you need, almost in terms of games. They give you
if you haven't, you really should bookmark it. It's going to be where you settle disputes. It's going to be where you're going to find like maybe new games.
And some really interesting, if you design games or just want to talk about games, they have some great forums for people talking about that.
Look up reviews, promo cards for like rare exclusive promos. It really is your go-to place for the board game, which is overall why I think it's been around for 15 years.
Yeah, I mean certainly it fueled our passion for games. I think for early on.
Oh no! Yeah.
It certainly did. So, you out there watching this, I would love it. We both would if you let us know what you thought about BoardGameGeek. What do you use it for? Is there something we didn't mention about like people's variants that they submit? That's another cool thing.
That's actually I can't believe you forgot that because people always made like we always talk about Legendary. People made amazing Transformers Legendary, which I think they actually should make. Ghostbusters.
Yes, different scenarios they make. Yeah. Very cool stuff. Or
playmats, like alternate artwork. Like there's a lot of resources.
Oh yeah.
That's like I said. It's so big. It's just so much you can do there.
Maybe you submitted some of that stuff yourself.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Talk to us about what you think, or if you could, give us a suggestion for a future topic of the week, or just ask us a question, whatever. Of course. You can either comment on this video or send us an email. Our email address is rollforcrit@gmail.com.
And of course, you can follow us on Twitter and all other places, which should be around here as always.
They will be.
And of course, there's our own site. May not be BoardGameGeek.com, but it's real pretty good. We sell games. We got all these news articles. We post our podcast, which you can see, including this one, all our other ones.
And last week we just put up the Zombie Dice playback. Check that out. And we got some awesome new games in recently, like you said, X-Files and Scoville, the new Sentinels expansion, some other cool stuff.
And plenty more soon.
Oh yes, all the time more.
So of course,
that's rollforcrit.com.
Yes,
it is on the screen.
Like we said, check out the site. Subscribe to this, follow us, and let us know your thoughts about this BoardGameGeek or anything else.
We love it.
We do. We're not talking about everyone. We're talking specifically to you.
Just you.
I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes. This has been the Roll for Crit podcast.